What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk to you about two apartments. Same city, same neighborhood, similar rent. The first apartment belongs to someone earning $160,000 a month. You walk in and take a look. A massive wall-mounted screen, a leather sectional that cost $70,000, a kitchen counter packed with appliances, but most haven't even been taken out of their boxes. The closet is stuffed to the brim with clothes, and more than half still have price tags on them, which is wild. The guest room has turned into a storage unit filled with things that haven't been touched in years. Every time this guy opens his bank account, his face drops. He tenses up. If 2 paychecks don't come in, he's genuinely done and finished. The second apartment belongs to someone earning $88,000 a month. You walk in, and the first thing you feel is space. A simple couch, a reasonably sized screen. Only the appliances in the kitchen that actually get used. Every piece of clothing in the closet actually gets worn, and the guest room is actually a guest room. This guy looks at his bank account, and his mind is at ease. His heart is at ease. He has 18 months of expenses saved up, and 20% of every paycheck goes to investments. Same neighborhood, guys. The guy living on almost half the salary has 10 times more financial security. Isn't that incredible when you think about it? I'm telling you this, not from theory, but because I lived it myself. I came from middle America. My dad was a small business owner. I had no money, but I had ambition. Today, thank God, I have a company in the oil sector, I have a team, I have investments, and I'll say it straight. What got me to this point wasn't earning a lot. It was learning to spend less and more deliberately. This is not a story about income kings. It's a story about how stuff manages people. Now I'm going to tell you the real secret behind all of this. Everything you own costs you money twice. The first is obvious, the price tag, the number at the register. But there's a second cost that most people never calculate, and it's often bigger than the first. This second cost consists of storage, maintenance, mental energy, and opportunity cost. The treadmill you bought takes up space in your home. Space means money. There's a serious annual rental cost per square meter in city centers. A treadmill takes up about 2 square meters, including its usage area. So if that machine is mostly sitting there as a clothes hanger, you're paying thousands of lira a year in hidden rent. And then there's the maintenance cost on top of that. Think about a boat, winterizing it, cleaning, insurance, registration, minor repairs. The industry rule says annual maintenance costs run about 10% of the boat's value. A boat worth $1 million costs you 100,000 lira a year just to own, even if it never touches water. But we're not done yet, guys. The second cost also eats into your mental energy. Every object you own constantly occupies a small slice of your attention. It needs to be cleaned, organized, insured, looked after, worried about, and eventually gotten rid of. Research shows that visual clutter raises cortisol levels and reduces the brain's capacity to focus. Your stuff is stressing you out without you even realizing it. But hold on, I'm still not finished. The second cost also includes opportunity cost. You have to chase the opportunity. Every doll tied up in stuff is a dollar not going to investments. Think about a home gym setup worth $250,000. If that money had gone into an index fund 15 years ago, it could be approaching $800,000 today. You didn't just buy a gym, you chose a gym instead of buying your future financial freedom. When you add up all these hidden costs, you'll see that many possessions end up costing more than their purchase price. The sticker price was just the entry fee. The real bill keeps running for as long as you hold on to that item. Now I'm going to give you the rules of this game. Rule 1. Calculate cost per use before every purchase. Before buying anything, estimate how many times you'll realistically use it, then divide the total cost by that number. This gives you the cost per use, which is the only honest measure of value. A 3,000 Turkish lira jacket, worn twice, costs $1,500 per wear. A $6,000 jacket worn 200 times costs $30 per wear. The jacket that looks expensive is actually much cheaper. This calculation immediately destroys most impulse purchases. A 5,000 kitchen appliance you'll use twice a year costs $2,500 per use in the first year. That's the most ridiculous price you could possibly pay to accomplish whatever that thing does. But a $500 tool you use every week drops below $10 per use in the first year. This calculation pushes past marketing, emotion, and social pressure. It reveals the difference between what actually makes sense and what just looks appealing in the moment. Rule 2. Apply the replacement test to everything you own. Walk through your home and look at each item. Ask yourself this simple question. If this item disappeared today, would I pay to replace it? Be honest. Would you actually go out and buy another fondue set? Would you replace the bread maker collecting dust in the cabinet? Would you repurchase those clothes you haven't worn in 18 months? For most items, the honest answer is no. Those items are in your life because of habit, not intention. They were impulse buys, gifts you felt obligated to keep, or leftovers from hobbies and phases you've moved on from. These items have negative value. They burden you with space, mental energy, and maintenance costs without providing any corresponding benefit. Ruthlessly get rid of items that fail the replacement test. Sell what has value. Donate what could be useful to someone else. Throw away what serves nobody. The process feels uncomfortable at first, but once it's complete, it's incredibly liberating. The psychological weight of owning things you don't want or need is real. When you lift that weight, the mental space that opens up is hard to describe, but immediately noticeable. Rooms feel larger, decisions feel simpler, cleaning gets done in half the time, and you know where everything is because everything that remains has a purpose. Rule 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. There's a pattern I constantly see in people who earn good incomes but have nothing to show for it. They replace perfectly functional items simply because they're bored of them, or because new models exist. The television works perfectly, but the new model has slightly better contrast. The phone runs flawlessly, but the new release has a marginally improved camera. The car drives reliably, but this year's model has a fresher design. These upgrades feel like progress, but they're actually wealth destruction disguised as progress. Set a rule for yourself. Never replace anything unless it's truly broken. A phone that makes calls, sends messages, and runs apps doesn't need replacing just because a newer phone exists. A car that reliably gets you where you need to go doesn't need replacing just because the neighbor bought something shinier. This rule saves enormous amounts over a lifetime, and most of the time the previous phone works just fine. If this cycle continues for 30 years, unnecessary spending reaches hundreds of thousands. Applied across all the categories where upgrade culture operates, lifetime waste easily crosses into the millions. Boredom is not a malfunction. Desire for novelty is not a malfunction. The existence of newer alternatives is not a malfunction. Actual mechanical breakdown or genuine inability to perform required tasks is a malfunction. Everything else is marketing trying to get you to solve problems you don't have. Rule 4. Make spending harder and saving easier. Human behavior follows the path of least resistance. If spending is easy and saving is hard, you'll spend. If saving is easy and spending is hard, you'll save. Creating friction for spending looks like this: deleting saved card information from online shopping sites, imposing a 24-hour waiting period for any non-essential purchase, deleting shopping apps from your phone, unsubscribing from promotional emails, and not walking into stores unless you have a specific purchase in mind. Making saving easier looks like this: setting up automatic transfers to investment accounts on payday, keeping only small amounts in easily accessible accounts, making investment contributions happen before you ever see the money, and treating savings as a fixed expense rather than an afterthought. These structural changes matter far more than willpower. Willpower runs out throughout the day, environment is constant. Someone relying on willpower to resist impulse purchases will eventually fail when they're tired, stressed, or emotional. Someone who deleted the shopping apps and put away their cards simply cannot make an impulse purchase in that moment. The 24-hour waiting rule alone eliminates roughly 70% of impulse purchases, because most desires for objects disappear within a day if you don't act on them immediately. Rule 5. Count your possessions regularly. This sounds obsessive until you actually do it, but counting creates awareness, and awareness prevents accumulation. Pick a category, count how many items you own in that category, and write it down. The numbers often shock people who have never examined their consumption habits objectively. How? Many shirts do you own? Most people guess low and discover they have 3 to 4 times what they estimated. How many kitchen gadgets? How many pairs of shoes? How many books you'll never read again? The act of counting itself changes behavior. Once you know you own 47 shirts, buying another one feels different. The absurdity of adding a 48th to the collection becomes visible. Set maximum thresholds like 30 total pieces of clothing, or no more than 15 books at any given time, if every new purchase has to swap out an existing item. That friction alone dramatically reduces acquisition. Rule 6. Rent or borrow before you buy. Most items people buy get used intensively for a short period and then rarely touched again. If you want to try camping, rent equipment for the first few trips. If you want to try woodworking, borrow tools from a friend or use a makerspace. If you want a kayak, rent one several times before buying. This approach does two things. First, it reveals whether the enthusiasm is genuine or temporary. Many interests fade after the initial exploration, and it's much better to discover that while renting than after buying equipment that collects dust indefinitely. Second, it clarifies exactly what you need. The buy first mindset costs people enormously over their lifetimes. Rule 7. Understand the lifestyle multiplier effect. Every possession you own connects to other possessions. A boat requires a trailer, a tow-equipped vehicle, storage fees, maintenance supplies, safety equipment, and appropriate clothing. What looks like a single purchase actually triggers a chain of supporting purchases. Major purchases multiply into ecosystems of related expenses, and the true cost is never just the item itself. An $80,000 purchase, when all the multiplier expenses are factored in, might actually represent $130,000 or $200,000. Getting rid of one major item often eliminates an entire category of related expenses. Selling the boat wipes out storage, insurance, registration, maintenance, and towing costs all at once. Rule 8. Define enough before you start earning. There's something that constantly traps high earners. They never define what enough looks like, so they keep buying without ever reaching satisfaction. When their income goes up, they upgrade their lifestyle. When the new lifestyle becomes normal, they need another income increase to feel progress, and this cycle goes on forever. Someone earning $500,000 a month can feel just as financially stressed as someone earning $80,000 a month because their expectations and expenses grew alongside their income. To break this cycle, define enough before you start earning. Decide in advance what kind of home is sufficient, what kind of car meets your needs, what level of material comfort constitutes genuine satisfaction, and then earn toward that target instead of constantly moving the goalposts. Defining enough creates a finish line. Without it, you're in an endless race where lifestyle expansion always outpaces income growth. Rule 9. Measure wealth by options, not accumulation. The conventional view measures wealth by what you have: houses, cars, possessions, visible markers of success. But I measure wealth differently. By what? You can choose. Can you leave a job that's destroying you? Can you take 6 months off for a family emergency? Can you move to another city for a relationship? Can you start a business without guaranteed income? Can you retire before 60? Can you say no to opportunities that pay well, but compromise your values? These options are true wealth. They're only available to people who've built a serious margin between their income and their expenses. Someone earning $200,000 a month but spending $195,000 has almost no options. They're chained to their income requirement. Someone earning $80,000 a month but spending $45,000 has extraordinary options. Every purchase is not exchanging money for an object, but trading your freedom for a possession. Ask yourself whether this item is worth reducing your ability to make free choices about your life. Rule 10. Practice cyclical decluttering instead of annual purges. Most people who try minimalism do a massive purge, feel great for a few weeks, then gradually drift back to where they started. The purge feels productive. The gradual reaccumulation goes unnoticed, and within 2 years they're right back where they began. Instead of annual big cleanouts, do small regular reviews. A weekly glance at incoming items, a monthly evaluation of one category, a quarterly assessment of overall accumulation trends. Removing 3 items a week is manageable and sustainable. Removing 300 items once a year feels overwhelming and gets postponed indefinitely. Guys, here's a practical implementation you can start today. This week, walk through your home with the replacement test and identify 10 items you wouldn't pay to replace if they disappeared, sell them, donate them, or throw them out. This month, apply the 24-hour rule to all non-essential purchases and track how many purchase desires survive the waiting period versus how many evaporate. This quarter, count your possessions in 3 categories that tend to accumulate for most people. Clothing, kitchen items, and entertainment are good starting points. Look, this year, first define what enough looks like across major spending categories so your mind can be at ease. What home is sufficient? What transportation is adequate? What wardrobe genuinely meets your needs? Write these things down, and when the urge to exceed your own standards shows up, refer back to these definitions. Trust me, it really works. The financial transformation from these practices compounds over time. Someone who applies these rules consistently for 5 years accumulates substantially less while saving substantially more. Now I'm going to tell you what nobody tells you guys. The relationship between minimalism and money is bidirectional. God is my witness on this. Don't be surprised. Owning less creates more money, but don't ever forget that having more money also makes owning less feel natural. When savings grow strong and investments grow, the urge to accumulate diminishes. The psychological need driving consumption, namely the need for security and status, gets satisfied by financial strength rather than physical possessions. You don't need that stuff to feel successful because your bank account is already telling you the story you want to hear. People trapped in consumption cycles often can't explain why they buy so much. The truth is that spending temporarily fills an emotional void created by financial insecurity. If you address that insecurity with actual financial strength, the compulsion to spend often dissolves on its own. This creates a virtuous cycle. Spending less leads to saving more creates security. Security reduces the urge to spend. Reduced spending accelerates saving even further. The second apartment I described at the beginning, the one with 18 months of savings, belongs to someone who applied these rules consistently. They didn't get there through exceptional income. They got there through exceptional clarity about what actually matters. The other apartment belongs to someone who never questioned the assumption that more stuff equals a better life. Both lifestyles are available to you regardless of what you earn right now, guys. So now the only question is, do you want to own your possessions, or are you okay with your possessions owning you? The math strongly favors the first option, and so does the peace of mind. That's all I have to say, but the final decision is yours as always, and this time the decision probably shouldn't be too hard to make. Thanks, I'm Roger, and thank you for watching.